Hi everybody and welcome to Storytime with Fairfield County Library. My name's Miss Nina and I am so excited for Storytime today. Are you guys ready? All right, awesome. St. Patrick's Day is this week. That means this week we are going to be reading about leprechauns, Ireland, and maybe a little bit about good luck. All right, our first book is Fiona's Luck by Tessa Bateman, illustrated by Kelly Murphy and published by Charlesbridge. Once, luck was as free to be had in Ireland as sunlight, and just as plentiful. It filled the air, and anyone could grab a handful of it as the need arose. This was largely due to the leprechauns, for they made luck like cows made milk. Then the big folk arrived in Ireland. They were so large the luck clung to them wherever they went. "Something will have to be done," the king of the leprechauns declared. "We can't have those huge people soaking up all the luck. What would be left for us?" So, under the king's orders, the leprechauns wove fine golden thread into magical nets. Then, late one midsummer's eve, when the luck was at its height, they swept it up and stored it all in an oak chest by the king's throne, so he could distribute it where and when he chose. But the leprechauns had been too thorough. They not only scooped up all the leprechaun luck, but any other luck that had been floating about as well. The land of Ireland fell into a time of great misfortune. Hens gave no eggs, and cows would not let down their milk. The potatoes rotted in the ground. Now it happened that in Ireland there lived a woman named Fiona. She knew the lack of luck had to be the work of the leprechauns, so it followed that they alone could restore good fortune to the land. But getting luck back from a leprechaun would be like squeezing water from a stone. Not that it can't be done, but it usually requires more strength than you're apt to have. Sometimes cleverness, though, is worth more than strength. So Fiona took her last coins and used them to buy a cow and some chickens. Then, every morning and evening, she would take that cow into the barn. When she emerged, she would be carrying 2 buckets slopping over with whiteness. "Aye, she's a fine cow," Fiona would say to any who asked. "It's lucky I am to have her." Soon the rumors began. While others were short on luck, Fiona had pails of it. Every morning, Fiona would go into the chicken coop and emerge with her covered basket bulging with curves. "The hens seem contented," she commented to her neighbors. "It's lucky I am to have them." Soon the rumors spread. While others were short on luck, Fiona had baskets of it. Then Fiona began digging in her garden and filling her wheelbarrow with round, dirt-covered lumps. "It's not a good year for potatoes," Fiona said to all who passed. "Still, I'm lucky to have what I have." Now the rumors had wings. While others were short on luck, Fiona had wheelbarrows full of it. Naturally, word of this unexpected luck made its way to the Leprechaun King. One day, Fiona was walking across a green meadow when she suddenly found herself surrounded by a small crowd of the fair folk. In a trice, they grasped the hems of her skirt and ran around her in a circle. She turned to keep the skirt from wrapping around her knees, and as she turned, the landscape blurred. When it sharpened again, Fiona found herself beneath the earth in the throne room of the Leprechaun King. It was a glorious cavern with rich tapestries hanging against tall granite walls and the floor cobbled entirely of jewels. Torches and candlelight made everything sparkle, and music filled the air. In front of Fiona stood the throne, and on the throne sat the Leprechaun King. He beckoned to her. Fiona approached, her eyes scanning the room for the missing luck. She was as sure as smoke loves fire that the king would be keeping it close to himself. As she curtsied, she spied the oak chest. It was glowing slightly, sealed by a spell, since everyone knows that no lock can hold luck for long. "What would you be wanting of me?" Fiona asked politely. The king scowled. "Where are you getting your luck? Who's been giving it to you, and why?" he demanded. Fiona's eyes widened in innocence. "I have no luck," she declared. "Indeed, here I am, captive of the leprechauns. If that's luck, you can take it." "So you claim to have no luck?" the king inquired, raising an eyebrow. "Well, let's put it to the test. And when I prove that you've lied to me, as forfeit, I'll take all the luck you have and put it with the rest that I guard." His eyes flicked toward the chest. Fiona frowned. "That's a sorry bargain for me," she said. "Yeah, I know the rules. If a test is to be made, then a forfeit must be paid by the loser. I haven't lied, so when I'm proven truthful, I demand a wish as your forfeit." The king's eyes had turned shrewd. "Agreed," he said slyly. "I'll give you a wish for exactly the value of the luck you have, if my tests prove me wrong." Fiona knew she was being cheated. A woman with wit, though, can turn even a leprechaun's cleverness against himself. She glanced at the chest, and then, barely keeping a smile from her lips, nodded. So the agreement was made. At the king's gesture, one of his magicians brought out a low table and placed upon it 3 beautiful shells. Under one he hid a small gold coin. Then he whisked the shells around and over and under in a blur no human eye could follow. "Now," the king said, "where's the gold?" There was 1 chance in 3 of her picking correctly, and a person with good luck would find the gold every time. Even a person with a little luck would find the gold occasionally. But though they played the game over and over again, Fiona could never locate the coin. It was as if she had no luck at all. "Another test," the king ordered. A leprechaun harp was brought forth. Now leprechaun instruments make music by the luck of the player. A person with good luck would be able to play something just by stroking the strings. Even a person with just a hint of luck would probably figure out a simple melody. But in Fiona's hands, the strings went out of tune, and no matter how she stroked and plucked, nothing but ear-bending noise resulted. The king shuddered and frowned. Could he have been mistaken? Perhaps the last test would prove him right. "Bring out the chess set," he demanded. He and Fiona faced each other across the board. The king made his opening move. Nobody could hope to beat the Leprechaun King, for he was steeped in luck. But a person with good luck could last a little while against him. Even a person with just a hint of luck had hopes of making it a good few moves. Despite the king trying his hardest to lose, Fiona was beaten soundly within 2 minutes. The king eyed her in amazement. "You have no luck at all," he declared. "But what about the milk and the eggs and the potatoes?" Fiona sighed. "If I fill my milk buttons with whitewash, or my egg basket with pine cones, or my wheelbarrow with dirty rocks, surely that's my own business. I told you I had no luck, and I didn't lie. Now, I'll take my wish and be on my way." The king nodded slowly. "Indeed, I did promise you a wish, but for exactly the value of the luck you actually had. You've proven to me you have no luck at all, so that's all you wish for. Nothing." He smiled at the cleverness of his reasoning, all well within the limits of leprechaun law. Then his smile wavered, for Fiona was smiling too. "So I can wish for nothing?" she asked. He nodded, puzzled. "Then I wish for a hole," Fiona continued. A hole is nothing after all, and that's exactly the value of my wish. I wish for a hole that will never go away, and I wish it to be in the lid of that chest." She pointed to the chest of luck by the king's throne. The power of a wish, rightfully earned, is not to be denied. A hole appeared in the chest, and luck began escaping immediately. The king howled with rage, but what could he do? He had made a bargain and was forced to keep it. With an angry wave of his hand, Fiona was whirled away. When she opened her eyes, she was back in the meadow. The sun was just rising over the hills. If there was an extra sparkle to the sunshine and the grass glowed greener than before, well, it was only to be expected. And that is why, from that day to this, you'll always find some luck roaming free around Ireland, for the hole is still in the chest, and the king must keep his promise. But as for Fiona, well, as she herself said, "Luck's all well and good, but myself, I'd rather depend on my wits." All right, that was Fiona's Luck. I really like that one. What about you guys? All right, our next book is Tim O'Toole and the Wee Folk, told and illustrated by Gerald McDermott and published by Viking Penguin. In a little cottage on a little hill at the end of a little lane in Donegal lived Tim O'Toole and his wife Kathleen. Tim and Kate were so poor they had not a penny or a potato between them. Their children ate porridge for supper. Even the mice were thin from want of food, and the cat wouldn't bother with chasing the creatures. Their neighbors, who were poor enough themselves, avoided Tim, for they thought he would bring them bad luck. Things went from bad to worse until one day there was not a crumb or a drop left in the house. "Tim O'Toole," said Kate, "I can stand no more of being poor and you sitting around bemoaning your fate. You must go out and find work like a decent man and take us out of this poverty." Kathleen kept after him, and next morning Tim set out to see if he could earn some wages. Tim O'Toole traveled the length of the county, knocking at every door, inquiring at every farm, trying to eke out a few coppers for a day's work. But there was no work to be had. Finally, when Tim was tired and hungry and could walk no further, he stopped and lay down to rest in the cool green clover at the side of the road. No sooner had he stretched out than he heard the faint sound of merry piping and lilting voices raised in song and laughter. The strange music was coming from a little hollow in the side of the hill. Tim crept up to the hollow and peered over the edge. There below him was a troop of the wee folk, laughing and singing and carrying on. Well, Tim knew for sure his luck had changed, for it is well known that whoever spies the wee folk in the light of day can demand their treasure. Suddenly the music stopped. The little merrymakers were astonished when they looked up and saw Tim peering down at them. "Hand over your gold," bellowed Tim, trying to be fierce, "and you'll come to no harm." "Have mercy on us, Tim O'Toole," begged the leader of the little people. There was a smile on his lips, and he tried not to laugh. "You've caught us fair, so we'll see what you're richly rewarded." Then there was hurrying and scurrying in the hollow below, and soon the wee folk handed up a little gray goose. "Here you are, Tim, a goose that lays golden eggs. Go home straightways, tell not a soul, and you and your Kate will never want for more." Tim started for home, carrying the goose and feeling very pleased with himself. Soon darkness overcame him, and he stopped at a farmhouse to ask if he could stay the night. The couple who owned the farm, the Magoons, let him in and sat him down by the fire. Tim began to boast of his great good fortune and the little gray goose that lays golden eggs. That night, while Tim was asleep in the loft, the Magoons decided they could use such a goose as this. Quietly, they exchanged it for their own. Tim was none the wiser for it, and in the morning went happily homeward, carrying the goose he thought would bring him great wealth. When he got home, he put the bird upon the table. "Is this all you've to show for being gone these 3 days?" asked Kathleen. "But, darling, this is no ordinary goose," said Tim. "This one lays golden eggs." Well, the short of it is, they waited a long, long time, and, as you might guess, the goose did no such thing. "They've cheated me," howled Tim, and he marched off in a terrible temper to give the little people what for. When he finally reached their hiding place, he was still angry. "Golden eggs, is it?" cried Tim to the wee folk. "That goose you gave me laid no eggs at all." "This is curious indeed," said their startled leader. Then the little man wrinkled his nose and gave a sly smile. "Tim, wait but a moment, we'll make good your reward." There was hurrying and scurrying in the hollow below. A moment later, the wee folk brought forth a fine linen tablecloth and spread it in front of Tim. In the wink of an eye, it was covered with bounteous food and drinks the likes of which he had never seen before. "Take this tablecloth home straight away, Tim O'Toole, and tell not a soul," cautioned the leader of the little ones. "Then you and your darling Kate shall never want for more." Tim walked merrily toward home until darkness came on him. Again he stayed the night with the Magoons, and boasted to them of his new-found fortune. The Magoons thought it good fortune indeed. While Tim slept, they slipped away the magic tablecloth and exchanged it for an ordinary one from their very own cupboard. Tim was none the wiser for it when he reached home the next day. "Kathleen, my darling," he said, "we'll never go hungry again." With a flourish, he spread the cloth upon the table. Well, of course it was empty, and produced not a drop or a crumb. Kathleen laughed. Tim went into a rage. "The little heathens!" he shouted. In a flash, Tim was out the door and on the road again. "Stand fast!" Tim called down the little hollow where the wee folk were gathered. "'Tis pleased you are not, Tim O'Toole," said the leader. "Could it be that the tablecloth is empty?" All the wee folk were grinning. "Indeed it was, you scoundrel," answered Tim. The wee ones began to chuckle. "And did you go direct home as we told you?" Tim O'Toole admitted he had twice stayed the night at the Magoons. When they heard this, the little people burst into laughter. "You were a fool to trust the likes of the Magoons," said the leader. "But never mind, Tim, we've just the thing for you." The little people brought up a strange green hat and gave it to Tim. They instructed him to boast of its magic to the Magoons and to leave the hat where they could find it. "Then we shall see what we shall see," said the wee one. A third time, Tim tarried at the Magoons. He proudly displayed the magic hat the wee folk had given him. Then he crawled up into the loft and pretended to sleep. He had but laid his head upon the straw when he heard the Magoons stir below. "I wonder what sort of magic it is," said Magoon to his wife. Cautiously, he tipped over the hat. Out of the hat jumped 10 tiny men. Each had a little blackthorn club and began to beat the Magoons about the shin and ankles. The couple whooped and hollered and danced around the room, trying to escape the blows of the wee folk. "Lay off," begged Magoon. "Tell your henchmen to have mercy, O'Toole." "Give me my linen tablecloth and my little gray goose, and I'll leave you in peace," said Tim, laughing all the while. The Magoons gave back what they had taken. Tim put on his hat, tucked the little gray goose under one arm, draped the tablecloth over the other arm, and headed for home. When Tim arrived, he spread the tablecloth before Kathleen and set down the goose in the middle of it. The bird honked and laid a golden egg. Then the most delectable eatables and drinkables began magically to appear on the table. "Kathleen, my darling," said Tim, "we are happy at last." Or so Tim thought. Folks from all parts soon heard of the O'Toole's good fortune and crowded in to see the wondrous goose. The little cottage filled up with neighbors until there was no place left to sit or to stand. Everyone helped themselves to the never-ending supply of eatables and drinkables. "I never knew we had so many friends," said Tim, "but I think 'tis time the party was at an end." Tim tipped his hat and out jumped the 10 tiny men with blackthorn clubs. They beat the shins and ankles of the noisy crowd, chased them out of the house, and pursued them down the hill. After that, the cottage was quiet once again. Tim O'Toole and his family were quite comfortable, you might say. They spent many hours in front of the hearth, sipping hot tea and chatting and thinking kind thoughts of the wee folk. For all I know, Tim and Kate are still there, in a little cottage on a hill, at the end of a little lane in Donegal. All right, that was Tim O'Toole and the Wee Folk. Did you guys like that one? What'd you think? All right, everybody, thank you for coming to story time. Now, just because we're done reading does not mean we have to be done with story time. If you come down to the library this week, you can pick up a story time kit, which are these fun little activity kits that we made to go with the books we read today. Each kit comes with a coloring sheet, a recipe, and a fun craft for you to do. This week, the craft is for a pot of gold at the end of a rainbow. To get a kit, come down to the Fairfield County Library and look for some crates in the children's section. Now, we have 2 story times, so we have 2 different crates. We have the Wednesday and the Monday story times, and they each have a different kind of kit in them. So you want to be sure that you get the right kit, or you'll get something that's completely different from the one I talked about. The kits for this story time are in the group B crate. They're the blue ones. New story time kits come out every time there's a new story time, and we keep them for about a week. But if you ask one of the librarians, we might still have some left over. Maybe ask for me, Miss Nina. Okay, everybody, thank you for joining me for story time. Once again, my name's Miss Nina, and I hope to see you in the library this week to pick up a story time kit. It's time to say goodbye, but I look forward to seeing you all next time. Bye!